So whilst I've been unpacking things in my new flat, I've come across various different books, magazines, other kind of like physical pieces of inspiration that I've come across or that I've collected over the years. So in today's video, we're going to go through this box of books, and it's basically a range of photo books, zines, magazines, just things that I have purchased, been given, kind of found inspiration from over the years that I think might be interesting for you guys to look through as well. I'm also going to link as many of these that I can find online in the description if you do want to check them out for yourself. As ever, I think it's really important to support, independent creators, people who make and publish their own books, and a lot of what we have in here are from those kind of like independent publishers, smaller publishers. But it's a range of fashion, music, street photography, just anything that I've kind of been inspired by over the last few years. So we're going to move over to the table now and have a look through. So the first book we're going to be looking at is this portrait book from Gunnar Stahl. I'm sure you guys are probably already familiar with this book. It was a really popular book a few years back. Most of the photos are shot on 35mm film of various artists and people that Gunnar Stahl was able to meet and work with. The style of this photography very much reminds me of Places Plus Faces, candid stuff that has like a real intimacy with it because it's almost like documentary portraiture. I also just really like the actual book as well. Like, it looks nice when it's out, the way it's designed is nice. I love these kind of opening pages. It kind of sets the scene. It's kind of like an establishing shot to show that like this is about Gunnar's journey and the places he's been to and the people he's met. Continuing on the pink theme, we have this book from Tim Walker called Wonderful Things. I love the foiling on this. As someone that studied graphic design at university, at college, throughout education, my love for print media probably started with design and then has moved on to kind of photography as my work has grown in photography. But I'm still, I still love like a well-designed, good-looking book. Tim Walker's probably known best for his use of insane styling and insane fashion, really impactful pieces of styling using, color, this sort of fisheye kind of vibe. I believe it was Tim Walker that took the Harry Styles photo where the photographer is in Tim Walker, his hand is in the shot. I really love seeing this sort of thing as well, like sketches of set design, sketches that show that an artist had like a concept and a vision before they even went into the studio and started to take the photo. This is another example of where Tim would bring kind of like the set and the fact that this is a photo shoot into the image. So obviously you can see the guy rigging the light, kind of breaking that fourth wall. It will be said that some of Tim Walker's work, for me, my personal taste, is a little bit avant-garde, it's a little bit too out there, but I can appreciate, the skill of his photography, but also the concepts that he brings to life. Next up is Seeing Red by Joshua Drakes, who is a good friend of mine. And this is volume 1. So the idea of Seeing Red was Josh's idea of creating a platform for his work so that he didn't have to rely on other people's platforms to create the work that he wanted to create. So it almost has different chapters. So he kind of creates different narratives and different projects within this umbrella of Seeing Red. These two photos in particular are probably actually two of my favorite photos from the entire book. I also love this one in the water. I think it's like so peaceful. Josh is really great at using techniques like dragging a shutter, like you can see in this photo. Next up is one of the books or the projects that actually made me want to start shooting medium format film, and that is Boys by Rosie Matheson. So Rosie Matheson is a British photographer who shoots portraits, and a lot of them are of boys, and this project that she shot kind of explores the idea of like boyhood and manhood, but from a woman's kind of perspective, a woman's lens. And she interviews like lots of different men and talks about their, idea of masculinity and their perspective of masculinity. Again, this is a book that is designed so beautifully. I love this and how it shows like, you know, DMs or like just little things like oysters and film and stuff like that. Oysters is like a travel card in London. And it just shows kind of what this project was about, I guess. It's like mementos from the time in which Rosie was creating this project. This portrait in particular was the first photo that I saw of Rosie's work, and I believe that it won the Portrait of Britain award one year. But all of the photos are just so beautiful. The majority of which are shot on the Mamiya RZ67, I believe. And they just include like a range of men from around the world, which is really cool because you get to see like so many different people's stories. She was able to create such like a beautiful collection of portraits that I think you can kind of see how much she is able to relax her subjects in the way that the portraits come out. But for sure, Rosie is one of my favorite portrait artists. Next up, we have a series of 3 zines. Each one includes the work of different artists. So this one's Craig Atkinson, and it's all about the Barbican in London, which is one of my favorite kind of like brutalist architecture buildings. This one is about New York, and this one is about Manchester in the 1970s. So let's have a look at the Barbican book to start. So this book is more to do with kind of architecture, people and place. I love the fact that it's all shot on black and white as well. Next up, New York in the 1980s by Lionel Deremy. And I particularly like this one. It's more kind of like street photography, focusing on the people. And again, New York is one of the places that I find most inspiring. I definitely am due another trip to New York. Again, all of it is shot on black and white and focuses on kind of like different people. And next up you have Manchester in the 1970s by John Bulmer. I moved to Manchester in 2017. So, you know, it's like 50 years after these photos were taken. And it's interesting because I actually, when I moved to Manchester, I lived on streets very similar to these streets in this book. And it's interesting to see how much of Manchester has changed, but also how much of it is still relevant. I think because of that, of these 3 books, this one is probably my favorite. This book is definitely one of my favorite books, and it is essentially a series of photos that were taken through like the timeline of hip hop, if you will. So you've literally got photos from, you know, the 80s all the way up to close to the modern day, like the noughties. And it provides like contact sheets. You can see kind of the whole array of the photos that were taken from that shoot, which I think is really interesting because a lot of the time, just the one photo from something will become that famous or iconic photo, but actually there's this, you know, this whole roll of photos, this whole roll of photos that never really saw the light of day, or that were behind making that one iconic image. But this is a really beautiful book. It's got, you know, some of the most iconic photos that describe hip hop. And I actually did a video a few years ago where I looked at this book and I tried to kind of emulate some of the photos in this book, kind of pay homage to some of the shoots. These photos of Tupac are just like really beautiful photos, even the texture of the film. But it includes a variety of different artists and their work over the years. I also love these fisheye ones of Jay-Z, especially these color ones over in this corner here. Next up is this Peter Lindbergh book. And of course, this is primarily fashion photography. This one of Madonna is really interesting. I love the harsh light in this one. And he famously took this photo of this generation of supermodels, you know, Naomi Campbell, Chrissy Turlington, Cindy Crawford. This book, Magnum Contact Sheets, is really similar to the hip hop contact sheets, only it's not about hip hop, it's more street photography. You'll see like the contact sheets and then you'll see like a main image from that contact sheet. It spans a lot of time, it spans a lot of different themes. Martin Luther King, the Beatles. So some posts are about celebrities, some are street, like this one of the Paris riots in 1968. Bloody Sunday in Northern Ireland in 1972. So a lot of history within this book, and again, you get to see that iconic photo, and you also get to see the contact sheet that led to the iconic photo. Again, I love this one of Manchester, Moss Side in Manchester, and it's just the kids, you know, just playing. They're jumping off of this shipping container onto these mattresses, and you can see kind of the whole story throughout the contact sheet. And as time goes on, you kind of see that it transitions from a lot of black and white into more colour as colour photography became more accessible. And this comes all the way up to the early noughties, I think. Yeah, I mean, we've even got a digital contact sheet here. You know, this doesn't even look like it's digital. I would say that this looks, you know, the quality of it looks more like film, and you can tell that the artist would work with film by the way that photo kind of looks. But yeah, a really nice book if you are into contact sheets like I am. We are going to move on to magazines. So we're talking more about, you know, magazines that I've collected over time, some of my favourite series of magazines. For example, this is Brick, and Brick is one of my favourites. This is the sort of work I'd want to create, you know, artist profiles, like portraits of artists, actors, people really. I don't really mind who, just kind of like capturing portraits of people who have kind of like a story to tell, and it being published in a magazine. I love magazines for that reason. You kind of get these like really creative photo shoots to kind of accompany someone's story. And again, they tend to be designed really nicely as well. These photos of Grandmaster Flash, they're just like spot on. You know, you've got like the tones, the kind of the warmth of that background, the way that like the grey in the shoes and the blue of his hat kind of pop. It's also considered. But this is Brick, and I do have a couple of other issues from Brick that we're going to go through now as well. This is the Thundercat sheet. This one's really cool. That kind of composition and that kind of perspective feels like you are watching something real happening rather than something staged. And then here you have Dazed, which is more of a fashion and culture magazine, I guess. And this is the cover story. So you've got like your individual portraits from that group photo that you had. These are great. I really love these. These, you know, the lighting on this is great. But I find a lot of inspiration from things like this, books like these, whether in kind of like how people use set design or styling, or the way that they pose their models, the way that they edit. I think you can kind of take inspiration from a lot of the way that people work in these images. I think magazines also are a really great way to see a vast range of different work. You know, different artists' work, different types of work, different styles, things that you might not come across otherwise because you don't follow them on social media, or you don't know about that artist to buy a photo book, or they don't have a photo book. A lot of the work that gets published in, especially independent magazines, tend to be photographers that aren't as established yet. They might not have their work published in their own book, but they have their work published in these magazines, and you can kind of, you know, it's as much as these kind of features are designed to advertise the talent as such, you know, your actor, your musician, whoever it is that the story is about, it, I think, equally is a great advertisement for the stylist, the makeup artist, the photographer, the set designer, and, you know, those teams that really do make these publications happen. The last magazine we're going to look at is Crack. I have a few variations of Crack. So I have this volume from 2021. which is like an actual full volume. Then you have this from Crack, which was actually like the little freebie that they give out in coffee shops and stuff like that. So this is one that I picked up in a coffee shop in Manchester, and you can take them home. I didn't steal it. They're there for you to kind of take. And then the next thing I have from Crack is this archive book, and it spans 10 years, so it's 2009 to 2019, and yeah, it's a decade of the actual shoots, which is really interesting to me because it's more photography orientated. It's more about the images and kind of the story behind those shoots, and you have such a wide range of stuff. Like, you've obviously got this, which is kind of paying homage to Kanye West's infamous photo shoot, which is actually in that Contact High book, the hip hop book, and this one's with Slow Tie. But yeah, because it all spans kind of genres, lots of different people, lots of different photographers and artists, you have such like a wide range of photography to kind of look at and be inspired by. This one's actually in the Barbican. This is shot in the conservatory at the Barbican, which is really interesting because we were looking at that Barbican book earlier on today. But I hope you've enjoyed looking through these books and magazines. I do have others in the box, but I thought that these were kind of giving you a good range of photographers, different genres of photography, and kind of a little bit of a view into the type of material that I'm inspired by. And that is, I think, always growing and always developing as you change as an artist, as you grow up as a person. But print media is definitely one of my biggest inspirations, taking work of other photographers, other stylists, other creatives, and being inspired by how they make that work and how they create bodies of work. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.